Hello, penivores and vegetarians. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemers Bible, where we pay our respects to this despicable tome.
I'm so happy that Arn is drunk right now.
What
Sir.
gave you that impression?
It's just his intuition. He's psychic. However, I recognize the inclusion of our ace brethren and sisters and Nieblings. We love you too.
True. And before we start anything, I would like chat to know that I am a believer now in Joe Hendry. So everyone needs to join me in believing in Joe Hendry.
Yeah. And I need a character witness. Mark Peralta was just an hour ago in a brewery with me who can attest that I am not drunk right now.
Okay, so Mark,
why don't you share with us just the name of the liquid bread beer that you had me taste? What is the name of it?
Dr. Evil.
Nice.
Okay, that should say everything.
Also, Mark,
14% ABV, and somebody bought me 4 of them, and I haven't had anything to eat yet.
I didn't know you had real beer in America. I thought it was all that horrible piss water at 3% that you all pretend was terribly, terribly.
It's
tough
mostly
and
that.
Manly.
It's mostly that.
Yeah.
This place sucks.
I love you so much.
I think she's referring to certain beers that come out of Milwaukee.
Especially those. Yeah. That's okay. I mean, I fucking hate beer. So.
I brought my false water Cobra, Tatya, and she was like the star of the show. I mean, I couldn't get her back in her bin. I mean, normally they're a little bit, they can do socializing for a little bit and then they want to go back. Well, no, she was just like doing the photo ops thing with everybody.
Good.
Yeah, and it was just it was like her best day. I was so proud of her.
She was, I'm so glad she got to enjoy the spotlight and the glamour as every true daughter of Lilith should.
Yeah, she did. All right, so we're reading this book. What was it? Aesop's Fables? What were we reading?
Close. It's actually called First Samuel.
Arn,
Aesop's Fables are better written and far less hideously immoral.
Quick household message. You have to pin the message in chat. It's not pinned.
I knew you were going to say that to me.
I was going to say that.
Okay.
That's what I do. That's why you pay me the big bucks.
So if the bromance of the show is Lawrence and Aaron, and you're like the den mother, what exactly is going on here, Peter?
Well, today it was me and Mark.
Yes.
Because we were hanging out in Fort Worth at Martin House Brewery. They do some wicked stouts over there.
Oh yeah, the
Absolutely.
best.
Well, I don't think I'm going to have to drive anymore tonight, so hopefully I can grab some gin on my next.
Was that to get it? Aaron, was that to get an alibi that you didn't torch the First Baptist Church in Dallas? That was
no. We were at a Unitarian Universalist church because we went to go see Seth Andrews give a presentation.
I have to say, the Universalists are pretty chill.
And that's why I had to bring my Venomous, because it's a church.
Of course.
I have to pick up serpents.
It was just surreal being there and the whole snake just taking over the show at the end.
How is Seth, by the way?
Yeah. Seth, fabulous as ever.
Excellent.
Yep. So, yeah,
I haven't seen him since, I haven't seen him in the flesh since we won the trivia night together and got those funny pens with like foams. Those were fun.
Well, he will be in Sarnia, Ontario in about 3 weeks, and so will I. So if you happen to be in that, general vasectomy,
someone please go on my behalf. I literally am caretaking for someone who cannot drive for another 2.5 months, so I can't go.
I'd be good to drive in another hour or so.
No, I'm sure you would, but you also didn't have a pacemaker installed recently, so
Sorry,
tomato.
that was an off-color joke.
I mean, what are we here for not to do off-color jokes?
Last
All
time I
right.
checked, we're here for biblical studies, very serious biblical studies.
So, Goat Fuckers
Yes,
Guide to
let's
the
get
Galaxy.
back down to the biblical scholarship.
This story we're gonna read, it's not exactly Aesop's fables, but we do have a main character that's an animal.
Yeah, and
It's a
you know
snake.
what? And you know what? Yeah. I wanted to say that, but Isaac just ruined it. Yeah, it's a
Aw.
snake. In Nachash.
Yeah,
His name is Snake.
like I mean, Aaron has a snake
Oh.
called Najash, right? Or
I don't have a snake named Najash.
oh no, it's not. So what is Najash? It's
I have
fossil?
yeah, I got the two cobras, but I didn't name either of them that. I named them both after rock stars.
So what's Najash? Is that a fossil snake?
No, Najash is cobra. There are
Oh,
fossils named Najash, but they're not cobras, which is weird. I don't understand why they do that, but
Well,
but,
it's an
you know,
extinct.
I know-
It's an extinct
Yeah.
genus of basil snake.
Aw.
Basil.
Yeah,
Basil
let's
snake.
move on, please.
Okay.
listen to
It's one-
Tomer.
I mean, it is
And
1
we're
a.m.
walking,
for me, so
and we're walking.
we're not
Aw,
walking. We are
sweetie.
sitting down.
And
Grab a
Ar-
beer. You deserve it.
I
and
have
Arn
my beer.
already has a question, Tomer, in the
Ooh.
chat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
All right, so Logan Day says, "Hey, I just wanted to have your takes on Oklahoma requiring teachers to use Bibles in the classroom. I'm on an 8th grade U.S. history teacher, and I am horrified."
Okay,
As you
so
should be.
I'm gonna maybe we can let drunk Arn respond a little bit later. But see, here's the thing. You
I have to get drunk first.
Deep breathing.
I think that like I don't know if you get to choose your own curriculum for how it's used. That's because if it were me, I'd be like, this is great. I can go balls deep with this. But unfortunately, I don't know if you get to choose your curriculum is the thing. Like, what you teach in these classes about the Bible, though. That would be helpful to know.
Lawrence.
If you do.
Lawrence, I've heard the Bible is very accurate, especially when thrown on a short distance.
Maybe that's it.
You could absolutely use them as target practice. There are two ways to go with this. There's shove it in the desk and forget about it, and there's malicious compliance, which I hope we may assist with.
There's other potential uses. It just depends on how absorbent the paper is.
Well, you could
Yes,
always just use it closed to like prop up one of those dildos that has the suction cups at the bottom.
I was gonna say.
It
is- It is interesting that different versions of the Bible are more true than others.
Depending on who you're
As
talking
in-
to.
As in, Amic, like more
Yeah.
more
Oh,
accurate.
You mean the King James?
I think
Well,
like that's quite a hefty
hardcover
one. That
versus
would be
soft.
easy. Yeah.
Either way, if you do get to choose like what you or how you teach the Bible, then I would definitely take it from like a very much like academic, very critical approach, and just treat it as basically like you're teaching literature.
Yes.
Whereas I
Make-
would rather use the brick Bible.
Yeah.
We know.
Make the kids
If it-
ask questions, and if possible, just maybe it's pretty easy to horrify them by just letting them read appropriate texts. Be careful, though. No child between the ages of 8 to 12 should be reading about the end of Judges. That's too far.
Here's one question, though, because you can have a Bible in the classroom, right? But generally, teachers ought to teach from the standards, the TEKs. And that's how the lectures are, the instructions are designed based on these teaching standards. And teachers ought not to go away from those. So unless somehow Bible or biblical Christianity or Christian theology works its way into the TEKs, I don't see what the point is of allowing Bibles in the classroom.
So that evangelicals can find ways to use contrived pseudo homeschool materials to warp everything into being Christian, as in Christian mathematics, Christian. It's awful. Yeah, it's the worst type of evangelical Christianity, and they've been pushing this shit for years. But yeah, it's get them to ask questions. Get them to question it. It's fucked up. Open a way for them to see that. And when they go, that doesn't sound right, be like, instead of immediately going with an excuse or an answer, be like, I think you have a point. Why don't you explore that further? Let them take ownership.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody that, I want to remind everybody that an hour ago, Mark Peralta and I were in the same room.
That's right. We're real.
What do we got to do to be in the same room with the rest of y'all?
Come visit.
Well, considering
Book a
I
flight.
barely leave this hellhole,
You don't know the way out.
Yeah, right.
This hellhole.
Yeah.
If Lawrence were to turn his webcam around, you would see the full size of the labyrinth that he lives in.
It's not a labyrinth. This is just a big ass fucking room.
What? There's no Minotaur?
Well, not here. In a different room.
Yeah, it's just a level 1 dungeon.
He still has a living David Bowie in there somewhere.
Watch out for mimics.
Okay, so how about we hop into this reading, shall we?
Yes, please.
Well, who's reading today?
I'll start us off.
Yeah, you go.
Good old chapter 11.
Hey, I know chapter 11.
Yeah, that's I was gonna make a joke about it, but I wasn't sure if that was the right number that I was thinking of. So chapter 11. About a month later, Nahash the Ammonite went up and besieged Jabesh Gilead, and all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, "Make a treaty with us, and we will serve you." But Nahash the Ammonite said to them, "On this condition I will make a treaty with you, namely, that I gouge out everyone's right eye, and thus put disgrace upon all Israel."
Gosh, that sounds like fun. Let's do that.
Good deal.
They should name an Ammonite fossil Nahash then.
Oh yeah,
that would be
makes sense.
interesting. And it'd be like Nahash the Ammonite.
The elders
It's
of
missing
Jabesh.
looks like something's gouged out. We can do that.
Yeah.
The elders of Jabesh said to him, "Give us 7 days respite, that we may send messengers throughout all the territory of Israel. Then, if there is no one to save us, we will give ourselves up to you." When the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul, they reported the matter in the hearing of the people, and all the people wept aloud. Now Saul was coming back from the field behind the oxen, and Saul said, "What is the matter with the people, that they are weeping?" So they told him the message from the inhabitants of Jabesh. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul in power, and when he heard these words, and his anger was greatly kindled. Sorry, wait, hold on. Yeah, in power when he heard these words, and his anger was greatly kindled. He took a yoke of oxen and cut them in pieces and sent them throughout all the territory of Israel by the messenger, saying, "Whoever does not come out after Saul and Samuel, so shall it be done to his oxen." Then the dread of the Lord fell upon the people, and they came out as one. When he mustered them at Bezek, those from Israel were 300,000, and those from Judah 70,000. They said to the messengers who had come, "Thus shall you say to the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow, by the time the sun is hot, you shall have deliverance."
By the time the sun is hot.
Okay, so when it's yeah.
When it's
Because
hottest.
there are
when it-
points of the day when the sun is surprisingly cold.
It means
means
like
noon.
when
Yeah,
the time of
the
day when it
highest.
is the highest temperature, i.e., at noon.
You don't think I know that? Of course I know
No,
that.
actually, I don't think you know that because you're
Wait,
drunk.
I just wanted to confirm. You said that Judah had 70,000.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a textual variation, which we'll get to.
Oh.
Yeah, so they went with 70,000 here, and it looks like so that's from from Qumran, the Greek, and the
40
Latin, but the
Samuel
Masoretic text says 30.
Yeah,
Yeah, and one
Septuagint as
thing
well.
that I keep seeing, consistent throughout this book, and the Lord came upon them again.
Well, apparently
Wow.
his
Gross.
when the Lord comes upon them, they get very stabby. So maybe he has some sort of it's like angel dust.
Well, it's a few things, right? But we'll get to it.
Anybody have any experience with angel dust? I mean, other than me?
Peter, probably. Okay, see, silent now. Okay. So, anyways, thus shall you say to the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow, by the time the sun is high, you shall have deliverance. When the messengers came and told the inhabitants of Jabesh, they rejoiced. So the inhabitants of Jabesh said, tomorrow we will give ourselves up to you, and you may do to us whatever seems good to you. The next day, Saul put the people in 3 companies. At the morning watch, they came into the camp and cut down the Ammonites until the heat of the day, and those who survived were scattered, so that no 2 of them were left together. The people
I
said to
remember
Samuel,
this scene. That's where they wrapped their arms in the leather thongs and says, "Hey, I give good wife. Do with me whatever you want."
See, when Aaron has been drinking and reads the Bible, this is exactly what it's fucking like. When he went, because he was here for an event, and we had him on our show live in person. There he was. We got through a chapter because holy shit, it's exactly like this.
All these false accusations.
Fine, maybe it was 2.
I gave no impression that I had been drinking.
No, not at all. It had nothing to do with the bottle of Captain that you had with you.
Captain Morgan.
Which Lawrence gave me when I was on his show.
Yeah, I did actually.
Lawrence gave me a bottle of Cannon Blast.
Yeah, it was delicious, isn't it?
Yeah, and with no breakfast. So let's just drink this down before we do this show.
Perfect time, honestly. But
Sounds
before,
fun to me.
I miss you, Lawrence.
I miss you too. We need to get absolutely sloshed.
Lawrence has heard of first breakfast, but he prefers liquid breakfast.
Like first breakfast can be liquid. You can only have one liquid breakfast. First or second, one of them has to have some solid components.
So when I go to Sarnia, wasn't it? No, it was Calgary.
Yes.
It was Calgary where I met you, not Sarnia.
Yes.
My apologies.
Sarnia is upcoming.
Yes. And
Okay.
you will not be there. And
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that too. We have a note from Kip Davis who says, "What's going on? It's so late in the afternoon." I know, right? That's what I say every time I wake up in the morning.
I mean, it's Sunday here, but whatever.
Yeah, for me as well.
Yeah. There was a question earlier on before the show started that we didn't read out. Did we want to?
No, please
The weird one.
continue, Lawrence.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll continue. So yeah, the next day
Thank you,
Saul
Peter.
put the people in 3 companies. At the morning watch, they came into the camp and cut down the Ammonites until the heat of the day, and those who survived were scattered, so that no 2 of them were left together. The people said to Samuel, "Who is it that said, 'Shall Saul reign over us?' Give them to us so that we may put them to death." But Saul said, "No one shall be put to death this day, for today the Lord has brought deliverance to Israel." Samuel said to the people, "Come, let us go to Gilgal, and there renew the kingship." So all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. There they sacrificed offerings of well-being before the Lord, and there Saul and all the Israelites rejoiced greatly. So, first of all, the story, that beginning story, with Nahash, kind of going up, and Nahash kind of giving them this this potential treaty that they could take about like, hey, you know what, or yeah, the people asked, what can we do so that you don't wipe us out, and he's like, hey, you know what, let me gouge out everyone's eye, and then the rest of it, it's like, hey, give us a chance to like go muster up some troops, I guess.
Yeah.
The thing is, that would never happen.
No.
Not in a million fucking years.
You might say, let us consult for a few days amongst our people, but you would never say, let's see if we can go call the cavalry.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That they would not let that fly. They'd be like, no. Because
is there any part of this book that has divine wisdom in it?
No.
Not unless God is drunker than you have ever been in your life.
Hey, yeah, the thing is, yeah, I think Tomer just said Ecclesiastes, right?
Yeah.
Ecclesiastes has some good wisdom. None of it's divine.
No.
Yeah. I'll agree with that.
The other thing is that it's not only that this sounds like very unlikely to happen, but it's also very stupid, in my opinion, the part of the elders saying this to Jabesh, give us days so that we can go out and find some help. Like, why would you say that, Yeah,
you would never say that.
I have some
first level
be
deception in politics. This is the right time to lie.
It might be like an example of like not breaking the fourth wall, but kind of like where the first half of the verse is saying, give us a few days. And then the second half is like, so that, that this is not what they said, but this is what they're telling the audience, so that we can go and find out someone will come to support us.
Basically, they stalled and did this while they were stalled, which is the only sensible way to do something.
What I have commentary on this, but when Lawrence will finish,
I wonder, it's pretty similar.
Yeah. So let's see, what else did I have to say? Right. So like near the end of it, there are a few interesting things I found. So first of all, when he's like, oh, no one's gonna die, this is the day of deliverance, they just fucking killed like half of these dudes.
But they were Jews, so it doesn't count.
Of course. I forgot. My bad. So next point. And then I find the link between Gilgal and the anointing of a king there to be very interesting as well. As like a place where you choose not where you choose the king, but where you declare a king, right?
The king is declared a god. Yeah, that happens.
The thing is, we have that in modern culture, right? Like when we what's it fucking called? When a new president gets inaugurated, when they're inaugurated. Yeah, they go to, is it fucking DC or some shit? I don't know. But that would make sense, right?
There's a special
and inauguration. Is that where they get cussed in carbonite?
No.
Aaron, are you okay?
No, it's where they get cast in a bottle of eggnog.
Oh God, I
don't know why people ask me if I'm okay. I'm having an especially good day.
Good. I'm glad.
In England, don't they have that Scottish stone that traditionally the Scottish kings and they like stuck it under they incorporated it into the English coronation?
It's under the chair of Saint something. It's called the Stone of something.
Also, I find
the Stone of Scone.
Yes,
the Stone of Scone.
The Stone of Scone, and it's spelled the same as like scone. Like
that's not real.
Yes, it is.
Okay, well,
Stone of Scone.
While you guys
the Stone of Scone,
the historicity of the Stone of Scone. There's another thing I want to point out is the message, the way that they give like these very ominous messages, these omens basically, or these conditional ones, also shines through here. So we had the one with at the end of Judges, right? Where he cut up the woman and sent her pieces out. But here we have the cutting up of this oxen and sending out all the pieces. And the message, while different, kind of shares the same tone of destruction.
You have to come to battle or this will be done to you. Yeah. I mean, to your oxen in this case, which is threatening, but not the same.
The guy did not even have sufficient duct tape to put her back together again.
No, he did not. Arn.
He did not listen to Red Green, and he did not have the duct tape.
By
Something
the way,
else that I
apparently I was wrong. It's pronounced the stone of Scone, but it is spelt
Scone.
the same as
Like
scone.
scone. Okay.
Scone. Yeah.
The
Fair
fuck
enough.
does that mean?
It's
Stone
a
of Destiny,
special
please.
stone. It's the same
Please.
thing with Gilgal. Well, you have a special place that they've always done the thing.
But it
and
was the
king and
Irish
ritual.
special place, and then the English stole it and then used it for their kings. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
people love doing that. They love stealing like holy places or just like important
it-
places for
Peter.
culture and just calling it theirs now. They love doing that.
Yeah.
Hey,
People are
something else I
assholes.
found that was a bit curious was at the very end when Samuel said to the people, quote, "Come, let us go to Gilgal and there inaugurate the monarchy." Like, doesn't that
Yeah.
seem a little premature? Like, how do you know this is going to end up as a monarchy? As you might understand it.
Oh, so do
almost
they
like it
do they
was
tr-
written
do they
later.
translate it as monarchy in yours?
Yeah, on the JPS.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's melucha. It can mean kinship or royalty according to BDB
Yeah,
dictionary.
it seems to be that the whole thing where he mustered the troops, they went together, and then afterwards, they said who here said that Saul shouldn't be king, let's kill them. And then that would be kind of it wouldn't have been a tradition at that point, but it would have been like, this is a sort of practical, we've established a kingship, but let's go to Gilgal. And Samuel says, let's go to Gilgal and make it official.
So this is another case of the story that justifies the tradition that already existed by putting it in the context so that everyone can identify with it, potentially.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know if
Also-
Gilgal was used afterwards as a kingship place. It seems to be that between the Exodus and like David or whatever, there's a lot of confusion about like where the center of worship is, where the tabernacle is. Everything's moving all over the place. Like we just had a story about the Philistines taking away the
Ark.
Ark of the Covenant, and then they bring it back to this place, right? Yavesh Gilead, right? Which is the place
was
that
it?
I think it's the same
Yeah.
place, no?
Our cultural
it's Gilead
R&D.
something. Yeah, it's
Our
very
cultural R&D has said that this is the story that we should go with. So let's bend everybody to that.
Pretty much. But you can tell that they're trying to incorporate a lot of different myths and legends and traditions.
Didn't it go to Shiloh? Sorry. Okay.
Sorry, no. I mean overall, like this
It was
is
on a
one
hill somewhere.
case.
What do you mean Shiloh, Lawrence? What country are you in? This is I heard Tomer say it. It's Shiloh.
Okay. Yeah. Fine.
Okay,
He's right.
fine.
Although I
Oh my God,
Sorry,
Aaron, you
Lilith.
were right.
I feel like we should let you finish your thought.
Well, I was going to say the other point where he goes, no, we will not slaughter the people who didn't initially want me to be king. I felt this natural contrast. Maybe it was the Christian in me raised to compare it with the New Testament, with something Jesus said that, let those evil ones that would not that I should be king over them, bring them before me and kill them before me.
Yeah,
Well,
now you're
what
just
is such a
Interesting
Christ-like
contrast.
message?
now you're just sounding like Origin.
Well, in fairness, it was a parable. It was just the God character that was saying that in the parable, which is in no way, of course, the good God. But yeah, you know what?
Was this
It's,
also where Jesus said that he was going to crush the unbelievers in a bloody winepress and produce a river of blood up to the horse's harness?
No, that was acid trip Jesus in Revelations.
Acid trip Jesus.
See, I think
Okay.
Revelation is way more interesting than
Okay,
and
I'm
an
going
acid
to have
trip
to
is
And
like-
I'm
switch
not saying it was
inebriants before I
actually
get to that
originated
book.
in an acid trip. I'm saying if
It-
you
it-
read that just plainly without the context of your education,
Yeah, it
acid
does
trip
sound
is not an irrational conclusion.
right. Yeah, no, I totally get why people jump to that because it does. It's like what's all this shit? Dragons and beasts coming out, and then this
Eyes
person riding out on
everywhere.
something else. Like, yeah, it does. There's a lot going on, but yeah. So Alter actually has an interesting comment for the renewal of this kingship. This clause helps us make sense of the triple story of Saul's dedication as king. First, there was a clandestine anointment with no publicly visible consequences. Then there was the tribal assembly at Mizpah, in which a reluctant Saul was chosen by lot and proclaimed king. After that event, however, he appears to have returned for the time being to private life. Now, following his signal success in mustering the tribes and defeating Ammon, Samuel calls for a new assembly to reconfirm Saul's standing as king, which will then be seen in subsequent episodes manifested in the institutions and power of a regular court.
So
I have to-
we have
I have to
three
make
origin
mention-
stories.
I have to make mention of somebody in the chat had brought up that First Baptist Church in Dallas that's under Robert Jeffress is on fire right now.
Oh.
And somebody was looking for an explanation of that. That was apparently a scheduling error. They were not supposed to achieve damnation quite this early.
Well, you know those Baptists, they're real go-getters on the fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The last time I was there, this woman knelt down in the middle of the street to start praying against us. And so I started quoting, oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember the reference right now, but you know, that thou shalt not pray in the public like the hypocrites do. Thou shalt pray in the privacy of your
when
own
you
room.
pray,
She
do
had
not
no
pray in
idea
public like hypocrites do.
what
Yeah.
I was. Yeah, she
Yeah.
had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that
you
verse is pretty
quoted
clear.
The Bible to her, and she was like, "The fuck are you talking about?" And not just the Bible, the Gospel of Matthew, the first gospel at not chronologically, but in the text. And that's
Yeah,
that was
and
it.
right
Someone
away,
in the
Matthew
chat
K
asked-
pulls up the exact thing that I thought I had remembered. So, you know, thank you for the reminder on that. I wish I could have called it to my memory in time.
It looks
Matthew
like a
6, 5, and
significant
6.
fire. I was looking at it. Like it looks serious.
Maybe they should just take the hint that God is displeased with their behavior, and perhaps they should consider moving in a different direction.
The
Well,
church
either
ca-
way, I hope no
Really
one is
now.
seriously injured.
the church caved in, but Jeffrey said God was saving the church because no one got hurt. Just the building burned down completely. So
Yeah, the
God
building
isn't-
burned down. All of the people inside were dead. The only thing that survived was a Bible.
Oh,
God, great.
God's an asshole.
The
apparently.
news story that I really love that I just saw a couple of days ago is that somebody in Africa was being baptized, and crocodiles grabbed their body while they were being baptized, ripped them apart, and drowned them in the river.
Mm-hmm.
And this just reminds me that God rewards your faith and never gives you more than you can handle.
We got the wrong guy.
So,
There is.
Tomer, how's your commentary doing?
Not started yet. Are you all done?
The
we'll be
fuck is
talking
wrong
about
with Come here.
It's like 1:30 a.m. for me, and I
And
have
we
to go
really
to the
appreciate you.
university, and I have to go to university like after I'm done
Okay.
with this. So not really after I'm done, just
We're not gonna
far
stretch it
be
out,
it for
so.
me to feel like I am disrespecting Tomer. Take it away.
Yes. So we'll start on verse 1. We are entering into a new story right after Saul was chosen as king. Now, 4Q Samuel A has the following introduction, which is translated by Tsumura, quote, "Now Nachash, king of the Ammonites, had been grievously oppressing the Gadites and the Reubenites. He would gouge out the right eye of each of them and would not grant Israel a deliverer. No one was left of the Israelites across the Jordan whose right eye Nachash, king of the Ammonites, had not gouged out. But there were 7,000 men who had escaped from the Ammonites and had entered Jabesh Gilead." End quote. Some commentators, like McCarter and Klein, take 4Q Samuel A to be the original reading, based on the reading of Josephus in Antiquity 6, 68 through 71. And since it, quote, "introduces completely new material with no exegetical or apologetic motif," end quote, according to McCarter. Tsumura writes that while it is possible that 4Q Samuel A reading is original, it could be that the section is a later addition, or that there existed more than one version. He writes, quote, "It might be possible that 4Q Samuel A got its information from some other version. This information, quote, makes excellent narrative and historical sense," end quote, according to Frank M. Cross, but this does not give us the right to reform the shorter version into a longer one, end quote. And Auld comments, although the extra, quote-unquote, paragraph has been adopted as original, quote-unquote, into the main text of the NRSV, it appears to me that the varied placing of the time reference, which is also part of the Septuagint text, before in Josephus and after in 4 Samuel A, indicates that the extra material is a late addition to Samuel. Two other features tell against its originality, though not decisively. Nachash is twice king of the sons of Ammon, while in 11.2, like 11.1a, he is the Ammonite, and Gad and Reuben feature nowhere else in the books of Samuel. Now,
I feel like, if you're a king of the sons of Ammon, that also just puts you into the category of Ammonite. So I don't really see that as
It
like
just needs to be like a language choice, but like, why are they different if they're supposed to be written by the same author at the same time? The other thing is also Gad wouldn't have been. One thing I wanted to correct myself with, I said, isn't this the place where the ark went back to? But it's not. Yavesh Gilad is in Gilad, which is on the east side of the River Jordan. So if the Ammonites were targeting the east side of the Jordan, then the Gadites wouldn't have been involved, right?
No. And this is but the sons of the king of Ammon would at least have been princes. That might have been worthwhile making a distinction if there was some, group led by a prince or whatever.
Now on Nachash the Ammonite, Nachash was the king of the Ammonites according to 12:12, 4 Samuel A, and Targum. Bar-Efrat notes that this is the only instance in the book of Samuel where a king from a different nation is mentioned for the first time, without having the title of king. According to 2 Samuel 10, verses 1 and 2, he was a benefactor of David. McCarter writes that Ammon and Israel shared a mixed history, sometimes as allies, often as enemies.
Sort of like England and France.
Yeah.
Hey, they've definitely played both sides.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say we can't call them the Philistines, that's for sure.
And I'm getting the impression that when we mention the people of Nahash, we're supposed to be going, shh.
No, that's for Haman. Kinda.
Why? How many is supposed to make a lot of noise?
Yeah, but you can also I guess, if you want to. Never mind. Okay. On verse 2, I gouge out the right eye of every one of you. Although this reading is understood plainly by most commentators, some understood it figuratively. According to Midrash Shmuel 14:7, he asked them to bring their Torah scrolls, which were given by the right hand of God, and to burn them. Others in that tractate wrote that he wanted to gouge out the right eye of the sling shooters and bowmen, or of the Sanhedrin of Israel.
Yeah, that was my problem. I thought that he was just talking figuratively, but then he shows up with a melon baller, and now I'm like this.
Just another case of people stretching things to kind of get what they want out of it. Like, probably saying stuff like, or the interpretation would be like, oh, look, he wants to take away the Torah scroll. Oh my God, you got to keep it right next to you. Like, that kind of thing.
Mutilation as a form of degradation and dishonor was definitely something done in a military context here.
Yeah, all around the world.
Well, yeah.
Dishonor on your house.
Time and place.
Dishonor on your cow.
Yeah, and dishonor on your half-shaved beard and the hand I cut off. But Jesus said to do that too, so. Ladies, if you have to go to church and the men are being creepy, tell them you'll handle it in a biblical way and bring a sharpened melon baller.
Well, Josephus...
Just one of those tiny little guillotines.
I can't make any sense of anything outside a literal interpretation of that, Lilith. Like, how would you metaphorically gouge an eye out? It doesn't make sense.
No. The places that are super patriarchal and creepy about their modesty rules are also usually quite literal. So I mean it quite literally. They want to play this game. I will play this game, bitch.
It's like that Americanized version of the Robin Hood movie. But sir, Why with a spoon? Because it's dull, you idiot. It'll hurt more.
And then you
I
can have some
haven't fin-
pudding. So it's like, why not?
Blood pudding, the origin story.
I haven't finished my commentary.
Thank you for
Yeah.
uttering those words. Peter,
Yeah.
present
Thank you, Peter.
the graphic.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Josephus in Antiquities 670 wrote, quote, "He did this so that when their left eye was covered by their shields, they would be completely helpless," end quote. And Bede wrote that the right eye is understood to perceive heavenly realities, and so Nachash wished to render the people of Yabesh Gilead powerless by taking the right eye.
You see, that tells you more about the time of Bede than it does this text. Which is like, what,
Yeah.
700? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So McCarter and McCarter and Bar-Efrat wrote that this act intends to humiliate the defeated party, as seen in the gouging of Samson's eyes by the Philistines in Judges 16:21, and Zedekiah's eyes by the Babylonians in 2 Kings 25:7. According to Zechariah 11:17, the right eye was considered a crucial part of the body. On verse 3, "Give us 7 days so we can send messengers throughout Israel." Kara proposed the following rationale, quote, "If you'll come towards us before we have sent messengers, and you gouged everyone's right eye, it won't be a humiliation for all Israel, since Israel would say, 'We did not know of this, since if we did, we would have rescued you,' end quote." Klein proposed that this concession was a sign of Nachash's arrogance, or of his feeling of absolute military superiority. Auld wonders whether the grant of their plea was, quote, "part of the chivalry of the times," or whether it simply confirms that Snake, i.e. Nachash, has the sight on all Israel and not simply on a single outlying city, end quote. Tsumura writes that the 7-day period may reflect a literary convention, as in Joshua 6 and the Keret epic. He notes Fleming's opinion that, as in Joshua 6, quote, 7-day intervals belong to the sacred time of a military campaign undertaken by divine command, end quote. On verse 4, Gibeah of Saul, in Hebrew, Givat Shaul. This name appears elsewhere in 1534, 2 Samuel 21:6, and Isaiah 10:29. Commentators generally identify this place as Gibeah of Benjamin, found in 9:1, 13 verses 2 and 15, and 14:16, Gibeah of the sons of Benjamin in 2 Samuel 23:29, the hill of God in 10:5, or just Gibeah in 10 verses 10 and 26, and 14:2 and 22:6. Tsumura writes that the name Gibeah of Saul must have originated after Saul was established as king, and Gibeah became the residence of the king, and not simply Saul's hometown. Auld writes that it may be supposed that Gibeah of Saul was simply one appropriate stop on their week-long tour of all Israel for support. On verse 6, the Spirit of God came powerfully upon him. We see in 10:6 that the Spirit of God already gripped Saul when he prophesied with the other prophets. Don't, Aaron. Here, this Spirit infuses Saul with military and leadership characteristics. This rushing of spirit, quote-unquote, also happened to other savior judges like Othniel, Gideon, Yeftach, and Samson. Tsumura cites R.P. Gordon, quote, "Saul appears for the present to have more of the charismatic judge than the constitutional monarch. However, his symbolic act and accompanying message do seem to presuppose a certain amount of authority on his part," end quote. On verse 7, in this verse, Saul dismembers a pair of oxen, cuts them into pieces, sends each piece throughout Israel's territory, and adds a threatening message. "If you won't join me, you'll end up like these pieces." McCarter writes that the assumption here is that the Israelites were obliged by mutual pledge to come to the aid of any Israelite in time of military need. Thus, the dismembering can be seen as a conditional curse. Klein notes that the parallel with Judges 19 verses 29 to 30, where the Levite cuts up the concubine into 12 pieces and sends them throughout Israel to invite them to fight against the Benjaminites. Another parallel is...
Sorry, just the word invite is something of an understatement.
Yeah.
So Samuel made some oxen nuggets into Roberts.
Another parallel is found in one of the Mari letters where the head of a prisoner is used. And Tsumura comments, Robert Paulsen notes here that the judicial echoes of Judges 19 through 21 are, quote, more extensive, end quote, than in the practice of dismembering the bodies and dispatching. In both episodes, the towns of Yabesh Gilead and Gibeah are paired. He also notes some paronomastic rays, quote unquote, between the name Benjamin, which means right son, and reference to the right eye. The exact phrase in verse 12, quote, give us the men so that we may put them to death, end quote, appears also in Judges 20:13 and nowhere else. In the light of these similarities, Paulsen draws conclusions, quote, everything in verses 1 through 11 contributes toward a conscious and deliberate ignoring of the monarchic status of Saul in favor of depicting him as someone who, like the judges of old, leads Israel to victory under God's inspiration, end quote. However, Paulsen's intertextual approach ignores the more immediate context in which the present episode is placed. In fact, chapter 10 already anointed Saul as a king designate. As anointed prince over Yahweh's estate in 10:1 and king-elect in 10:24, Saul here sends the messengers into the entire territory, that is, quote, the entire land of Israel's inheritance, end quote, to urge Yahweh's people to unite to rescue their brethren in Yabesh Gilead, end quote.
I feel like we have a few options here, right? So either one, because there's obviously a link between this and like the final chapters of Judges there. So the options that we have are like one is using the other. So we have like, let's say for example, opening hypothesis here, or starting hypothesis. Let's say that the story in Judges is meant to be is taking up the motifs found here and kind of applying them to their own time. Or let's say that it's the other way around. And then the other option is that they're written from the same author, right? So because I highly doubt that you get these kinds of similarities completely separately. So I think it's likely that one is based on the other. So now we have to kind of contextualize and go like, okay, well, which one would have been written first? So like this story, for example, it is very it acknowledges that there is a negative connotation towards kingship, but ultimately it is in favor of it. And in the other story, it's being used to talk about this to talk about a war, right? So, or to like give
Both
like this origin story to a war. So the way I see it is so you can have the older story, let's say the one in Judges, though at least from just kind of like looking over it from what we read. So if the older story is in Judges, then like it's from an older layer that is just meant to be like a, how we were talking about the older books being more like mythical and then like or more legendary, I guess, and then everything gets more and more historical as we go along. So like the composition there would be something that is this legend for for the beginning of this war, the Benjaminite War, and later on we have probably from we can call it the same writing school, but later on we get the usage of those motifs in Judges 19 and 20, and we have this this creation of this story about Saul. And when it comes to justifying the kingship, remember Saul is overall not a good guy. So like he has like this kind of moment of greatness, but eventually he does kind of get rejected as king, and eventually it's shown he's basically the problem, right? It's like, well,
He
we're gonna
falls
give you a
from
king, but
grace.
you're not gonna like it. Is the kind of thing, right? That's
Yeah.
how it started off.
falls from grace.
So to me, it kind of makes a lot more sense to have like this older story in Judges 19 and 20, and then later on we have a reworking of those motifs to create this foundational story for the kingship in 1 Samuel 11.
Can I present an alternate hypothesis?
Go ahead.
Common ancestry. The specific motif within the story of dismemberment as a both call to arms to war specifically and as an implied or stated threat is clear. And we have the whole like, this will be done to your oxen as opposed to this will be done to your body. Saul is, I guess you could say, more civilized, threatening people's livelihoods than threatening to dismember them physically. Huzzah. But at the same time, this is reminiscent of something that we've seen a lot in a lot of the tropes, even back to Genesis, when Abraham makes the contract with God, and they walk between the dismembered, the animals that are cut in half. There's the Lord do this to me, and more. So this idea that just calling dismemberment down as a curse, and the threat of it is something that is referenced. It's possible that there was some tradition or legend around this that had to do with the calling to arms. And I mean, you don't want to receive a severed head as a call to arms, but it wouldn't be unthinkable in the course of history. And then, the authors and obviously the later redactors and harmonizers angling this trope so that there's the counterpoint. Saul's threat is more civilized and less barbaric. And
I also have to remind you that while it's not often that you receive a severed head, it would be rude to turn one down.
Not if it's a horse's head in your bed.
Anyways,
I was gonna say, now we know where the director or the maker of The Godfather got his ideas from.
So it could be a thing that then was folded into, and I do think the tropes were that later harmonized, definitely. But I mean, we have 3 origin stories for the ascension of Saul, and while that may represent something of kingship by divine ordinance, kingship by prophecy, and kingship by conquest, kind of laying out 3 ways in which he is king, there's also the element of harmonizing legends and trying to bring them all together into a cohesive whole. So I think
the last thing you mentioned about different ways of authorizing kingship, like divine legitimation, right? And then through war, whatever it is, that kings often use multiple of those, right? So it wouldn't be out of the question that these stem from the same same general milieu. But I think Tomer mentioned you mentioned a very similar phrase in Judges 20, I think, that was shared in this text. What was the verse?
Give us the men so that we may put them to death.
Okay, yeah. So I think something like that ties it in closer together textually than just having this very similar idea about curses and this cutting up of a body kind of thing. I think that ties the text together.
Yeah, no, and I do think, as I said, that there was an element of massaging it to reflect and angling. I'm unsure as to exactly how to determine which was true of these origins, but I figure I'd throw as much as we can into it.
No one really ultimately will know what's true about this, right? We just have ideas.
Well, obviously, the only thing is that Samuel wrote all of this, including the shit that happened after he died, because it was divinely dictated by God into his brain, and he used it like a typewriter, and it's perfect. And shut up.
See, that I could swear Tomer said that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are getting closer to the less mythology parts of the Bible and more legendary. And we will get,
Eventually, we
a
will
couple of
get to
books.
like to actual historical parts.
Actual history, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going
So
to be like
we're
interspersed
first.
with like, oh, God did this, God did that. But the thing is, that's just how history was written back then. Like they included gods in their history.
Hezekiah existed. That doesn't mean the whole story about his military victory wasn't heavily glossed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we did already talk about, I guess it's a much earlier story. We did talk about Balaam and there being what was it?
Dear
Almarna?
Allah. Dear Allah.
Dear
text.
Allah. Dear Allah text. But that's, first of all, that text is also Iron Age. So it's either like, you know, somebody who actually lived in the Iron Age. So it's not helping us at all. Or it's just a story. So it's not confirmed person at all. But we will soon get someone who at least is mentioned in archaeology.
Does anybody have any objection? Sorry, Isaac. Does anyone have any objection to the numbers, the 370,000 in total soldiers here?
Oh yeah, the textual variants, right? I'm not sure about that. So I'm sure
Well, I
Tomer
mean-
has commentary though.
That just how big a
I'm
number
still
is.
waiting.
Yeah, how big a number that is.
Sorry, we were discussing the topic though, Tomer. We weren't discussing
You are
rabbits.
discussing off topic.
I'm sorry. Was talking about the textual history of which one was based on which off topic? I actually don't think so.
I did kind
No.
of jump ahead to another book, so I guess
You did.
I was
You
going
did.
off topic.
You did.
Yeah.
I was.
It was a teaser.
I was just waiting for you to finish.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Now on verse 8 on Besek. Although most commentators take Besek to be a place name, Rashi, based on Talmud Yoma 22b, wrote that Besek refers to earthenware shards, which Saul used to count the army. In addition to Rashi, has Besek as pebbles, and Saul took a pebble from each one and counted them.
Right,
McCarter,
'cause you can't count people. Sorry, I
Yeah.
just remember that from the law.
Yeah.
McCarter identified Besek as Chilbet Ipsik, about 12 miles northeast of Shechem, and on the western slope of the Jordan Valley opposite Yabesh Gilead. This identification is accepted by modern commentators.
Is accepted.
Is.
Oh, well, just based on it being mentioned, being that it's nearby another place.
I mean, there are other arguments, I guess, but like.
Oh, okay. Maybe
It
the name
is one
is
of the
mentioned.
accepted explanations by legitimate scholars and not something pulled out of the ass of a biblical literalist.
It just seems very, I don't know what the word is, here's a place name in the Bible, there's a name, and we know it's close to this other place. So here is a ruin that's close to that other place, so it's probably this. I don't know, it sounds very strange, but then there must be more to it, yeah, if it's accepted.
Yeah.
Maybe
Now
the
about
place name is attested later on in the record there.
Now about the men of Israel numbered 100,000, and those of Judah 30,000. Septuagint has 600,000 Israelites and 70,000 Judites. 4Q Samuel A seems to follow the Septuagint, preserving 70,000 Judites, but the figures of the Israelites are absent. Josephus in Antiquity 678 has 700,000 Israelites and 70,000 Judites. Higher. McCarter prefers the MT, writing that such numbers tend to become exaggerated rather than understated, and so the smaller figures of the MT are preferred. And but some see Elif as referring to a military unit. Yeah,
How do you know what's understated?
Well, the thing is,
Nothing.
we can tell on these like when we actually when archaeologists, I should say, do those kind of digs, right? They can tell human habitation and they can roughly estimate the amount of people that lived in these places, and because of that, they can come to conclusions about how big an army possibly was. And yeah, it's always overstated.
Yeah,
Always.
religious
And nothing is
believers-
ever understated.
Religious believers respect the calculations.
Some of them,
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
and the ones that are like reality and not ravenously attached to
Yeah,
specific dumb interpretations.
Yeah, some of them
It takes
very
us-
much like understand that like while like they would believe like, oh well, there is like a reality to this, but yeah, since these are people writing this, like you would still have some exaggeration here and there. So like even
especially with royal propaganda,
yeah,
like come on, it's not like that doesn't happen frickin' everywhere.
It takes a certain kind of person to go like, oh yeah, all of those numbers in the Bible that are like always 7, 40, like all of the numbers that keep coming up again and again, the round numbers, those are all completely literal, you know.
Thought-stopping techniques, my friend. Thought-stopping techniques.
Also, Klein notes that the distinction between Israel and Judah is anachronistic. It says that this seems
I
to
was going to wonder about that. Yeah,
he writes the distinction between Israel and Judah would seem to presuppose the division of the monarchy that took place 80 years after Saul's death. Many would doubt whether Saul exercised effective control over the area of Judah at any time. The proportion between Israel and Judah, 10-1, is the same as that employed in Isaiah 6:13.
Is this David Klein's?
Ralph Klein.
Ralph Klein. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, okay, you could say it's like, okay, Israel in total, and then Judah specifically because they were nearby. I don't know, something relevant to the story. Therefore, there's 30,000 them, or 70, depending on the version. So it's important to mention them. But I wonder if this is the first instance of it kind of implying that the word Israel means all the tribes except for the specific ones, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the way that it did when I say divided kingdom, but
and also like when in the sort of caste system where you have Israelite means all of the Jews who are not Levites,
or
right?
all of
Israelite,
the Jews,
Levite priests.
In a later version, all of the northern kingdom tribes, not Judah, and sometimes not Benjamin, but sometimes Benjamin. It's not always entirely clear, and it's good that we have scholars who actually read the original languages that can look into the origins of these things, because it's almost like God is the author of confusion.
So everyone, just to remind everyone, this is the beginning of the first ever Israelite kingdom, and it would have been a unified, everyone is under one king, and the two kingdoms would have been something that would have, according to the story, happened later on. Like, according to history, we don't actually know if there ever was a unified kingdom.
Yeah, but in fact, more and more scholars
more than
keep
likely
thinking, no, there was not a unified monarchy.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, just a shared sort of culture and language.
Yeah,
probably.
And the thing is, the people in the north eventually migrated to the southern region, so that kind of created this distinction between Israel and Judah.
Yeah, there might have been a stronger distinction that has been erased over
time. I have to add, one of the criticisms I've been getting from a lot of believers lately is, what do the scholars know?
Yeah, what would experts who spend their entire life looking into the origins of things and come to the same conclusion despite vastly different areas of study in archaeology or textual criticism or any number of hundreds of other things that all seem to somehow tell the same story magically, what would they know? The pastor said that God said the thing, and that means that I should trust the God and not the peoples.
Yeah, I mean, it's because people don't really like doing history. Like, even if they like learning about it, they don't like doing it, because doing it is actually very difficult. I had a conversation with a Muslim yesterday about this, actually, and I mentioned that like doing history is very difficult, and he's like, yeah, it is. So it's like, I don't even so he was like, I don't even bother with actually like doing it, which I get that, I mean, he's, he has a life, he does like actual things, and he has a family to provide for. He can't just be fucking sitting there reading a whole bunch of shit, right? But the thing is, yeah, it is difficult, and it is time consuming. So when people hear a certain claim, they might not even look further into it, and that's
all right. So somebody challenged me this morning to explain why I don't believe in God. And I said, well, the first thing is that there's no evidence for God. And then there's the second thing is there's plenty of evidence against God. And so I was challenged on the first thing. I was challenged to prove there's no evidence for God.
I have an answer for you, actually, Aaron, that can reverse the burden of proof in a way that they can't object to by having a temper tantrum about it.
Oh, no,
okay?
because they don't want responsibility at all.
I know. Ask them, just simply say, I'm happy to do that, but you need to provide me with a clear, usable definition of the God you are proposing. Otherwise, I can't possibly answer your question. And I guarantee you will not get 3 questions deep before that definition falls to fucking shit.
Anything
even
that
get 2.
begins to pretend to feign pushing the burden of proof onto them is a non-starter right away. But when I explain that, okay, well, how could I prove no evidence? What would I do? What could I say?
Mhm.
That's not even logically possible. Now, you, on the other hand, you could produce evidence, and then one single example refutes my claim. But they're angry at that because that means they have to do something.
It also means that it's uncertainty. They don't like uncertainty. I mean, that's why God is the answer for so many different things. That's why when you say, prove God, someone will jump between biology, physics, history, literary criticism, like 17 different totally unrelated fields of study, because they've shoved God in as the answer to all of those things at different points. And now if you pull one thing, their understanding of everything falls apart. So, you have to treat it as a deep emotional attachment to the idea and to the sense of stability and self that they've invested in that idea very foolishly, and not as an actual logical discussion, because Aaron, I know you've had this discussion for decades. I know it's not a rational discussion.
So I do actually kind of want to get us back to the text here. So Tomer, definitely continue with your commentary. I want to get through at least chapter 12. So,
Okay.
No.
Okay, on verse 10, tomorrow we will surrender to you, and you can do to us whatever you like. Several commentators saw an ambiguity with this message. The Ammonites understood that when the people of Jabesh surrender, they can gouge everyone's right eye. But the people of Jabesh understood that they are about to go to war with the Ammonites. Bar-Efrat writes that the message of the people of Jabesh intends to strengthen the complacency of the Ammonites. Because of their confidence that the city would surrender, it was possible to launch a surprise attack against the Ammonites at the same night. On verse 12, who was it that asked, "Shall Saul reign over us?" This is a reference to the scoundrels, literally sons of Belial, from 1027, who said, "Who can this fellow save us? How can this fellow save us?" Although this is a question, and it is paraphrased in an ironic manner, and is found in Septuagint and Vulgate, Peshitta has, "Who said that Saul should not reign over us?" In Targum, who is it that said scornfully, "Saul is not fit to reign over us"? On verse 13, no one will be put to death today. Gersonides wrote that either Saul did kill them in the next day, or that he said this out of trickery, so that these people might escape from the hand of Israel, to show them that he wished to kill them the day after. Ibn Kaspi, however, wrote that he never killed them, as suggested by 1 Kings 2:26. According to Septuagint, Samuel was the one who said this. While this is favored by McCarter, Klein writes that this, quote, seems only to be part of a persistent effort to insert the prophet into this pericope, end quote. Likewise, Tsumura writes that it is more suitable for Saul to say this, since Saul is trying to emphasize that the Lord, not he, delivered the people of Jabesh. And finally, on verse 15, Klein comments, the actual proclamation of Saul's kingship was done by all the people, according to verse 15, with no mention of Samuel, except for the variant secondary reading of the Septuagint. The proclamation was followed by communion sacrifices, i.e. peace offerings. In such offerings, one portion would be offered to God on the altar, while the other portion was to be eaten by the worshippers. The peace offering, Zevach Shelamim, in Exodus 24:5, was associated with the ratifying of the Sinai covenant. Are we to assume that proclaiming someone king also involved making a covenant with him or with God? The two words for sacrifice in verse 15 are not in the expected construct chain. Perhaps they are to be understood appositionally, or the second is an interpretation of the first, i.e. exegetical use. In any case, the ceremony is shared in by both Saul and all the men of Israel. This positive interpretation of the events of Gilgal needs to be compared with the cryptic but highly critical comments about kingship in Hosea. Quote, "They have made kings hemlichu, but not by my sanction," end quote, in 8:4, and quote, "All their misfortune began at Gilgal, for I disowned them," in 9:15, end quote. And I should note one Christian who said that, i.e. Gregory the Great, who wrote that Saul's division of his army into 3 companies symbolizes the fasts of the law, the prophets, and the gospel.
I thought for sure it was going to be the Trinity. Jesus.
Well, he does say that by fasting we are called back to the contemplation of the Holy Trinity, which we lost by eating the forbidden fruit.
Of course it was, because it's always good to get caught up in the contemplation of a rational impossibility.
I'm done with my commentary.
All right. So who is reading chapter 12?
Nice.
Well,
Yeah.
Just a second, Peter. Why can I see the comment on the
All right.
screen?
So, someone
Yeah,
pulled
that's
up.
streaming on the show.
Someone pulled up a comment
Yeah, I
in
think-
StreamYard that doesn't work.
I think someone is on.
All right. Let's say, okay, hold on. Got read that one. Frank Tovey says, I didn't know we have a king. I thought we were an autonomous collective. You're fooling yourself. We're living in a dictatorship, a self-perpetuating autocracy in which the working class, oh, there you go, bringing class into it again. Well, that's what it's all about. Sorry.
being repressed.
Okay.
There was someone who had another question, but I think it's completely off topic. And
Is it
It's
off
up to
topic
you if
or
you
is,
wanna
is
answer.
it even there?
he asked it. He directed it at you early on. It was something about, your experience that you had when you were younger. That you.
The time you got high and decided it was
Yeah.
just your imagination. It might actually be a good topic for a video, but I think if we
Is
sidetrack
this when
into
I
that
figured
right now.
out that list that what was it that stuff that Vicks Vapor Rub cannot be used as a replacement for
Oh, you poor. Stop it. Okay, go eat some bread. I will read the next chapter. You eat bread.
I'm going to read.
Fine. I guess it's your show.
Wait. Tommy, did you finish?
I did.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Just making sure.
So I'm going to read.
You finished.
Samuel said to all Israel, I have listened to everything you said to me, and I have set a king before you. Now, you have a king as your leader. As for me, I am old and gray, and we beat Medicare.
Hey,
And my sons are here
Lilith,
with
you want to read?
I have been your leader from my youth until this day. Here I stand. Testify against me in the presence of the Lord and his anointed. Whose ox have I taken? Because that's not my ox.
Oh, I thought you were going to take someone's ass.
It's a rhetorical question.
Whose donkey have I taken? Whom have I cheated? Whom have I oppressed? From whose hand have I accepted a bribe to make me shut my eyes? Huh? Huh? If I have done any of these things, I will make it right as soon as I sober up. You have not cheated or oppressed us, they replied. You have not taken anything from anyone's hand. Samuel said to them, the Lord witness against you. And also, his anointed is witness this day that you have not found anything in my hand. He is witness, they said. Then Samuel said to his people, it is the Lord who appointed Moses and Aaron and brought your ancestors out of Egypt. Now, then, and before, now, and whenever. Stand here, because I'm going to confront you with the evidence before the Lord, as all the righteous acts performed by the Lord for you and your ancestors. After Jacob entered Egypt, they cried to the Lord for help. And the Lord sent Moses and Aaron, who were both dead by this point, like a long way back, who brought your ancestors out of Egypt and settled them in this place? But they forgot the Lord their God. So he had told them in the hand of Sisera, the commander of the army of Hazor, and into the hands of the Philistines and the king of Moab, who had fought against them. They cried out to the Lord and said, we have sinned against you. We have forsaken the Lord and served the Baals and the Ashtoreths, but now deliver us from the hands of our enemies, and we will serve you, because we're stupid people. Then the Lord sent Jerubbaal Barak, Jephthah, Jerubbaal Barak, Jephthah, and Samuel. Jerubbaal, Barak, Jephthah, and Samuel, and a partridge and a pear tree, and he delivered you from the hands of your enemies all around you, so that you lived in safety. But when you saw that Nahash, king of the Ammonites, was moving against you, you said to me, no, we want a king to rule over us. Even though the Lord was your God and your king, no, here is the king that you have chosen, the one you asked for. See, the Lord has set a king over you. If you fear the Lord and serve and obey him, and do not rebel against his commands, and if both you and the king who reigns over you follow the Lord your God, good, it's all good. But if you do not obey the Lord, and if you rebel against his commands, his hand will be against you. He will pull down your pants and swat. As it
You don't need
was
to share your king's love.
as it was against your ancestors. Now, then, soon, whatever, different constraints of time, stand still and see this great thing the Lord is about to do before your eyes. I have to tell you that you have to watch it because it's going to happen before you, but I still got to tell you to watch it because maybe you were not paying attention. Is it not wheat harvest now? I will call on the Lord to send thunder and rain, and you will realize what an evil thing you did in the eyes of the Lord when you have asked for a king. When you asked the Lord for a king, do you not real? You put the man out. Then Samuel called upon the Lord and said, in that same day, the Lord sent thunder and rain. And so all the people stood in awe. Awe. Of the Lord and of Samuel. The people all said to Samuel, pray to the Lord your God for the servants so that we will not die. For we have added to all of the other sins the evil of asking for a king. Give us a fucking clue. Is that so bad? Do not be afraid, Samuel replied. You have done all of this evil, yet do not turn away from the Lord, but serve the Lord with all your heart. Do not turn away after useless idols. They can do you no good, nor can they rescue you, because they are useless. For the sake of his great name, the Lord will not reject his people, because the Lord was pleased to make you his own. As for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by falling to pray for you. And I will teach you the way that is good and right. But be sure to follow the Lord and serve him faithfully with your whole heart. Consider what great things he has done for you, yet you persist in doing evil. Both you, if you persist in doing evil, both you and your king will perish.
So, so it starts off right with this brief little history, right? So you start off with Moses and Aaron, and then it it also mentions people like, let's see here, Jacob, Sisera, like some of the stuff that we've already covered, right? So it mentions this what's the word for it? Just like the shortened history. And
yeah, it's a summary. It's kind of a trope to be like, I bear witness against you that God has done all of this shit and you're still. I just want to interject. I promise I'll be brief. But whenever God says, how dare you worship other gods, the Baals and the Asherahs? Asherah was his wife in a previous iteration. For most of actually the early Hebrew religion that this would have been drawn out of. So I want you to think of God as going through a really vindictive divorce. And if you're taking his wife's side, he's going to be really pissy about it.
I don't think that refers to the Asherahs. The Hebrew is Ashtarot. It's not really Asherahs, right?
Yeah, so that's we're in verse
Maybe
10,
here.
right?
10,
It
yeah.
comes up a lot.
Then they cried to the Lord.
It's a trope.
And said, we have
There
sinned,
is a
for we have forsaken
confusion,
the
I
Lord,
think.
and we have served the Baals and the Astartes. So
Yeah.
so it's not.
I think there is a confusion.
Just more of that sounds like Persian origin with the.
It was
It seems
from that region. Yeah, I think it's older, but yeah.
And I think there is a connection between Asherah and Astarte, and there's like another one. I don't know if they were considered like the same god, but they were like had similar
related, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there was like another one.
Ancestor
I think
thing.
Astarte had a sister, maybe.
Is it Ashtaroth?
That sounds right.
I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know, but I don't remember exactly. But the interesting thing that I found about this this brief little history, right, is the way that it's kind of used in in the text, because one of the things that we find throughout the Deuteronomistic works are, we get this more at the end where we're talking about, doing what was not right in God's eyes, right? So we get kind of that language of like you doing things that are wrong later on, but it's kind of it's still playing on this idea that is also throughout the work, and also in the Torah, right? Because one of the main things, it's like the importance of the land, right? The land being that it was given to the fathers, and because of that, we kind of have the appeal to those times here, because it's saying, look, all of these guys were given this land, so now you too are given this land. So the importance of the land claim here is the context under which this is being used
there, and that's very important in Israelite history, is the land claim, about how they have the right to be usurpers and to kill and drive off the presumptively indigenous people of the land, even though they would have been the indigenous people of the land as well, but also there's this whole origin story that takes them out of that. So it's really kind of twisted. It's very twisted, and it's been used to justify a lot of twisted shit throughout the last few thousand years. But it's worth observing the consistency in this. Common themes and tropes that go throughout the Bible. Whew.
Yeah, and it looks like actually Alter translates, because we were talking about verse 10, right? The Baal and the Astartes. So he translates it as, of course, the Baalim and the Ashtaroth. Yeah. So
See, so that again, Ashtaroth, Asherah, it's there's definitely common roots there with his ex-wife, and God does not handle rejection by women well. He
One of
really
the criticisms
doesn't.
that I heard about the whole thing about God having this wife Asherah, or Ashtaroth, or Atharat, however you pronounce it, they said, yeah, but her name's only mentioned like once. So it doesn't have any significance. How many times have we seen it so far?
Yeah, well, Asherah and related, the idea of these sacred poles, right? That's mentioned a few times, quite a few. But yeah,
remember Kip Davis' version of the Moses song, and how much it preserved the polytheism of the original text, in which Asherah appears quite frequently.
Yeah, there's definitely the very strong polytheistic tendencies in Deuteronomy 32. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look into, because there is a confusion in scholarship between like Asherah and
Astarte,
which is like
Asherah.
Yeah, because they are two different goddesses, and one was the wife of Baal, and one wasn't. But then people get confused.
They're different, but they're also like it's like saying Aphrodite and Venus are different. They are, but also there's a common root and origin there. It's not quite as simple. It's not like they came from totally different, unrelated origins and had nothing to do with each other either.
I'm not entirely sure. I haven't done a deep dive into it or anything.
But there's also like Anat, and then you have Ishtar, which is like Astarte.
There's a note in Halot where the scholars point out that, first of all, they say that this is the Canaanite goddess of fertility and warfare. This is according to Albright. And then it says,
Albright, okay.
A defamatory vocalization, like in Boshet, of Astarte. So is it possible that they're just misspelling it on purpose, just to take away some of the...
I think it's possible. I think they're not sure, because the sound changes aren't exactly what you would expect, but it's possible.
And it is definitely possible, especially because the names of the gods and the speaking of the names of the gods was thought to have some sort of magic power. So perverting the presentation and the text of the name of the god might rob them of a little bit of that power, and thus you're referring to them, but you're not referring to them. It's like, when I refer to someone I loathe, and I can't talk openly about them and I'm talking to someone who understands, I'm like, she who will not be named, and we both know. But
I think it is possible because I think that the Phoenicians didn't call her Ashtaroth; they called her Ashtart or something like that.
Yeah, but that's you can
Ashtartu
hear
or something like that. So
there's
it's how did they get to the Hebrew vocalization? It's possible that it could be they try to make it sound like the Hebrew word boshet, which means shame. Yeah, it's possible.
I could believe that. In the perversion of the names we saw with Beelzebub, Baalzebul, Lord on High, becoming Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, warp name as an insult.
I guess
that's totally a thing too.
Yeah, a final thing maybe would be it's interesting how Ashtaroth became a male demon in later demonology.
Yeah. Much later, but yes, definitely interesting.
Yeah. Of course, we're talking about late medieval, early modern, or whatever.
Well, either way,
something like that.
How about we hop into some commentary?
Sure.
All right.
We'll start on verse 2. Klein comments, since Samuel mentions his own old age, scholars have frequently identified this chapter as a farewell address, compare Joshua 23 verses 1 through 2. His reference to his sons may also be an indication of his age, but no reference is made to their misdeeds cited in 8:3. Such a difference may result from the writer's access to an alternate tradition, or it may indicate that several hands contributed to the Deuteronomistic redaction. In Hebrew, the contrast between the king and Samuel is highlighted by the use of the words hine and ve'ani. But the word walk in Samuel's case refers to his moral or ethical conduct in his public life rather than his leadership. Perhaps the word walk used of the king refers both to leadership and his moral character. Then the author would mean that the king's behavior was yet to be tested. Samuel's was already known.
Fair point.
On verse 3, McCarter notes that Samuel's objection to the Israelites' lack of confidence resembles that of Moses on a similar occasion, as in Numbers 16:15. He notes von Rad's opinion that the verse, quote, belongs to an ancient formal category of cultic self-justification, also represented in the Old Testament by such passages as Deuteronomy 26 verses 30-14, Job 31, etc., end quote. Tsumura notes one extra-biblical example from Hittite documents, crossing of the Taurus, which illustrates the popularity of such a negative confession, quote-unquote.
Interesting. It does remind me a bit of in the Egyptian belief where your heart would be weighed against a feather and you would have to make the affirmations. Never have I, cheated someone. Never have I have not. And you would say to your heart, do not betray me. Do not testify against me. And you would testify all these things before the God, and the God would weigh your heart against the feather, and that would determine whether you went to a good place or a bad place. Granted, it wasn't a Christian good place, bad place, but it was nonetheless a division.
I remember that game. Yep. Never have I ever. No.
Never have I ever.
Yeah.
I would be very interested to play that game with you, Aaron, sometime.
On that same verse, from whose hand have I accepted a bribe to make me shut my eyes? Septuagint reads, from whose hand have I taken a bribe, even a sandal, answer against me, ... Reading na'alaim anubi instead of a'alim eini bo, I will shut my eyes. Several commentators favor the Septuagint reading based on Sirach 46:19, quote, Samuel bore witness, no property, no so much a pair of shoes have I taken from anyone, end quote. Klein
what
writes
was that? Xerox 1419?
Sirach, Ben Sirah as well, 46:19. It's a
Wisdom of Ben
apocryphal
Sirah,
text.
yes.
Yeah.
All right, because it sounded like a copy to me.
Okay.
Just
Klein-
facepalm. It's the appropriate response.
Wait, just a quick question: Is Aaron's message from the beginning of the show pinned?
I think it is, isn't it?
Okay, because someone
Yes.
didn't understand why people are.
Yeah, I was just
someone
answering
didn't
that.
understand why people are tagging. Yeah.
Okay. Klein writes that the Masoretic text has lost the last two words by haplography, and that taking a pair of shoes could mean something of little value, or as an idiom referring to a legal transfer of land, as we see in Amos 2:6 and 8:6.
And Ruth.
Speaking of which, what Isaac just brought to my attention, I read one comment, but there was another one immediately associated with that, and I didn't read that one. Dara O'Kane says, is there anybody that still worships Asherah, any sect of Islam, Christianity, or Judaism out today that has many gods?
To my knowledge, no. But there might be like some people, right, that are more of the mystical types that kind of fall into that. But I don't know.
Well, I think what the person, the questioner needs to know is there a sect of Islam, Christianity, or Judaism out today that has multiple gods? There are other religions, Sikhism,
Hinduism.
Hinduism,
yeah,
Sikhism
Hinduism,
is derived from
Buddhism.
Hinduism, Jainism, yada yada yada.
Yeah,
There probably are some
so-
like neo-Semitic pagans out there, but I've never met
Something
anyone.
like that, yeah.
I
I
can
wonder
see that.
if
Chinese
they prefer the
ancestor
Ugaritic or the
worship.
Sumerian.
I mean,
Shamanism.
I could see worshiping Asherah just to say fuck you, Yahweh, I'm taking your wife's side. But
Yeah.
again, that's not really my heritage, and But yeah, I can see it. I can see it. It's
There is a Jewish neo-pagan organization called the Kohenet Institute, but I have no idea what they
The
do.
Kohelet Institute.
Kohenet.
Okay,
Kohenet.
that's
Oh,
different.
oh,
It would
like
be
as
cooler
in,
if it was
What's the
Kohelet.
matter,
Yes,
Lawrence?
yes.
Can't you say these Hebrew words?
No, Kohelet is. I was thinking of Ecclesiastes.
No, it's
Yeah, yeah.
Kohenet.
That's Kohelet.
Fine.
I can
Like,
help
I've
you
never-
pronounce these. I'm
I
pretty
don't
good
think
at it.
I don't think I've ever witnessed a neo-pagan Semitic, at least Jewish version. of
Yeah, I
something.
haven't met any. They might exist,
Yeah.
but I don't know of any major sects at least that
that would be more likely to be private practice.
Yeah.
I would guess.
Yeah. They're
And
interesting.
then-
Neo-Canaanites, Neo-Punic, Yeah, interesting.
And then Card Picker says, what was the name of the ritual that Aaron claims to have performed in which he got a result but chose to ignore it? If he can remember, no stress.
That's from before the beginning of the episode. That's when they were talking about, you've talked about when you got high and had an experience, and then and there was a friend who you remembered having this experience with, and then they didn't remember it properly or
I
something.
didn't choose to ignore that. It altered my entire belief system for more than a decade. But it was when I conferred with the other people involved that they didn't remember it that way at all.
And you were, by your own admission, high.
I was not.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm
one
thinking of a
time
different story.
we tried
And also sometimes
summoning
we
a demon
remember
on my
things.
channel, and
Oh yeah.
it didn't work because there are no demons. But hey, we gave it a real shot. We had the whole we had a Seal of Solomon, right? We had a Triangle of Solomon. We had some other stuff written on it. We wrote down all the names of God and stuff like that, and we followed the instructions to a T, and still no demons.
Yeah, my phone never rang.
True. We were trying to summon a tree demon, one that would help us bend trees, but no,
That
none
would
of
be
that.
cool.
To this day, none of us can bend trees.
Bend trees like
I don't know. It's not clear. It just says you can bend trees. Can't bend
Oh,
trees.
okay. I
You
thought
yeah,
gave
maybe,
it
you
the
know, some
old
Avatar.
college
There's
try.
an hour-long demon summoning ritual on my channel.
Oh wow.
Oh, okay.
We went all
Next
out.
time, Lawrence, if you ever do a demon summoning again, I want in. I want in. This is
You can be the demon in
necessary.
this.
That's funny. No, next we're probably gonna do something with Scientology because we have an e-meter. So.
I haven't been traumatized by Scientology. I've been
Hey,
traumatized
I
by
do have an
Christianity.
answer. I ran into this thing, says that in Kawasaki, Japan. Each spring, people flock to Kawasaki to celebrate the Kanamara Matsuri, also known as the Festival of the Steel Phallus. Held this year on April 16th, the festival is a celebration of the penis and fertility. People parade gigantic phallic-shaped mikoshi, which are portable Shinto shrines, down the streets during the event. And it goes on and on. And this is an article talking about modern day cultures that have adopted the worship of fertility goddess. So find that interesting.
They're not it's not the only phallic rituals in religion as well. I think there's also Hindu ones, although they don't look as phallic, but they're supposed to be. They're like more iconographic.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's all about the dick.
Yep.
Okay, I'll continue on verse 5. He is witness, they said. The Masoretic text reads, Vayomer Ed. He said witness. Rashi writes that a heavenly voice, in Hebrew bat kol, came out and said, I am a witness.
Of course.
Yeah. Kara, Kimchi, and Ditrani wrote that Israel spoke as one, or that each one of Israel said this. However, all early translations and several Hebrew manuscripts read, they said. The Lucianic recension reads, and the people said witness. The reading they said is preferred by Klein and Auld. McCarter takes the MT as a conflation, quote-unquote, of the Septuagint and the Lucianic recension, and writes that this phrase belongs at the beginning of verse 6, and reads, Yahweh is witness, he, i.e. Samuel, said, end quote. Tsumura renders, and it was declared, the witness is, ... and Samuel said to the people, end quote. And writes that as a part of the court procedure, a third person declares the first half of a formula, witness is, followed by Samuel's response with the Lord, as seen in Joshua 24:22. On verse 6, Klein writes that verse 6, quote, presents text-critical and literary-critical problems, end quote. For example, the Septuagint reads, the Lord who made Moses and Aaron is witness, who brought your father up out of Egypt, end quote. Likewise, Kimchi and Gersonides fill in the blanks with Yahweh is witness. He further writes, Timo Viola dismisses verse 6b, Yahweh Egypt, as a post-Deuteronomistic addition in hymnic style, while Dennis J. McCarthy treats it as, quote, called invocation, end quote, or cry announcing the presence of the Lord on this solemn occasion. He opts for the text of the Masoretic text. Hence, the cry is a non-sentence, Yahweh who appointed, etc. If we retain the verse, and in the form given in our translation, it repeats Yahweh's witness function and lists some of his credentials, before moving on into the lawsuit proper. To translate asa in verse 6 as appoint is not wholly satisfactory, since the parallels usually cited from 1 Kings 12:21 and 2 Kings 21:6 also list the office to which the people are being appointed. Driver suggests, following Kale, quote, made Moses and Aaron to be what they were as leaders of men, end quote. Both this clause and the reference to the Exodus anticipate verse 8. On verse 8, after Jacob entered Egypt, they cried to the Lord for help. The text does not mention what happened after Jacob came to Egypt, or why did the fathers cry for the Lord. Septuagint inserts in the middle, quote, and Egypt humiliated them, end quote. Some commentators favor the Septuagint, with Klein writing that the MT was damaged by homo ioacton, and the spacing in 4 Samuel A suggests that it had the longer reading of the Septuagint. Bar-Efrat, however, writes that the matters are already known, and there is no need for a short summary that should retain every detail. On verse 11, Barak. So, I kind of went on a deep dive into this, because the Hebrew Bible reads Bedan, which a judge... Bedan, a judge who is not attested elsewhere. Targum, followed by traditional commentators, take Bedan to be Samson, since he was a Danite, reading in Dan or son of Dan, since Bedan can mean Bedan in Dan or Ben Dan, son of Dan. Although Although Bedan is attested in the Vulgate and the Septuagint although Bedan is attested in the Vulgate, Septuagint has Barak. Some scholars see the Septuagint reading as the original, since verse 9 refers to the account of Deborah and Barak by mentioning Sisera, and that the Masoretic text reading might be seen as a scribal error. Van Saldarini-Sulman, however, writes that the Septuagint is, quote, not necessarily based on a divergent reading, end quote, based on the following reasons. Quote, 1. It is a well-known pattern in ancient versions that unknown persons are identified with known ones. Because scriptural texts are believed to be coherent, all details of scripture have to be relevant. The choice of this judge by the Septuagint may have been inspired by the mention of Sisera in verse 9. 2. The judges to which verse 9 refers do not need to be mentioned in verse 11. The man who led the battle against the king of Moab, Ehud, is not mentioned there either. Therefore, a reference to verse 9 is not a valid argument. And 3. It would be surprising that the well-known name Barak was replaced by a completely unknown name through scribal error, end quote. She concludes that the Septuagint can be compared with the Targum. Quote, they interpret an unknown name, identifying it with a well-known person, the first inspired by the co-text, the latter by spelling. The Lectio Difficilo Bedan is most probably the source text of all ancient versions, end quote. Likewise, McCarter favors the MT reading as the more difficult text, which the Septuagint corrected, quote-unquote, to Barak, a more familiar judge. He notes Zakovich's opinion that Bedan should be identified with the judge Yiftach, whom he assumes to have had two names in a fuller tradition, exactly like Gideon and Yerubal. He writes, quote, Zakovich takes the original reading here to have been Bedan, later glossed correctly as Yiftach. A still later scribe, ignorant of the identification, arranged the text to read two different names, Ve'et Bedan Ve'et Yiftach, as it now stands. Though Zakovich does not cite it, the evidence of Josephus in Antiquity 690, who lists only Yiftach and Gideon, as if he knew that Bedan would be superfluous, lends some support to his argument, end quote. Tsumura sees Bedan here as a phonetic variant of Barak. Other solutions are given by Van Saldarini-Sulman. Quote, the name of Bedan may be based on an independent source which was never used by the biblical authors, according to Stobe. This is the only solution which does not attempt to harmonize this name with the known names in the Book of Judges. Bedan may be a scribal error for Abdon, a minor judge, according to Judges 12, verses 13 to 15. Only the Ein was left out, according to H. Jacobson. An argument in favor of these two assumptions is that the judges to which verse 9 refers are all different from the judges in verse 11. Thus, the two verses would be complementary and would mention two major and one minor judge, as well as Samuel.
So, Lawrence, do you see a conflict chronologically with what Tomer's reading right now?
Well, the thing is, what I'm actually wondering is, I actually kind of like the idea that there was just an ion missing, but the my question is, I know that I could see how, like, in script form, like, one could confuse like a dalet for a resh. I could totally see how that could happen. I don't know how you would confuse like the N for the K. I don't remember what that's called, but I can. I don't see.
Yeah.
Kuf, okay, thank you.
So
yeah, I don't exactly see how there could be like a change there. So I do like
I think they're quite similar. I don't know if the older script, if it is, but
okay, I guess I'm not
it's not that
sure.
different. They're both long.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, so I guess like I could kind of see like how there would be a misreading there, but you are right that they do often have to they love tying it into people that they already know, and the fact that we don't really know of a Badan would be interesting. But so Alter actually does go with the Badan reading. He bases that on the fact that like the list itself is a little kind of it's kind of out of whack. So the idea that it's not like exhaustive, right? The idea that it's not exhaustive might lend some credence to the idea that it should be Badan. So I could see like an original reading be Badan here.
Is there? Did you mention? Is there in the study Bible someone who says it might be a shortened version of Avdon?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is a
he mentioned
name?
that.
Oh, you didn't say. Okay, I didn't hear that.
I did.
I was asking if you.
Okay.
I feel like
Yeah.
you said it, but I wasn't sure what you said about it.
I did like that explanation. That made quite a bit of sense to me.
Oh, right, the iron. Yeah. You
Yeah,
said
yeah.
iron. I don't know if I assumed that was in the middle of the word. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now on that same verse about Samuel, it is a bit odd that Samuel mentions himself as part of the judges who saved Israel. Kimchi writes that it was common to speak in the third person, as we see in Genesis 4:23 and Exodus 24:2. He notes a midrash, Psalms Rabbah 94, quote, Rabbi Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Yossi, even Samuel, who was the head of the prophets, prophesied, but he did not know what he was saying. End quote.
Do they really ever?
Yeah.
Well, definitely not when they're speaking like chickens or doing the Pentecostal tongues thing.
Yeah, I mean, if he's saying, thus says the Lord, and then he says himself in third person, like, kind of.
Eki, patwang, zoop boing. Neat.
Night to until recently said neat.
Okay. Bar-Efrat writes that Samuel's mentioning is necessary for the statement made by him in the next verse, that there was no need to ask for a king. Although Samuel's name is found in the Septuagint, Targum, and Vulgate, we find Samson in the Peshitta and the Lucianic recension. This reading is favored by McCarter, but he writes that many critics prefer the reading of Samuel on the grounds that the reading Samson was substituted to preserve Samuel's modesty. Klein favors the MT as the more difficult reading. Tsumura cites R.P. Gordon, quote, if the speech is a free composition of such things as Samuel was likely to have said on an occasion like this, the problem is, of course, less acute. Compare 7:13 forward. Emendation to Samson is ill-advised, end quote. On verse 12, this verse suggests that the people's request was a response to Nachash's threat upon them, as in 11 verses 1 through 5. However, this is not mentioned in chapter 8. Although verse 20 reads, let our king rule over us and go out at the head and fight our battles, we are not told to what battles this refers to. There seems to have been a different tradition where the Ammonite king fought against Israel before the Israelites requested a king. This tradition has been preserved in 4 Samuel A and by Josephus, as we have already seen. McCarter writes that either the Deuteronomistic author of this verse knew of this tradition with a different view of the relationship between the events related in chapters 8 and 11, according to Stobe, or that he made a free interpretation of the existing materials, according to Noth. McCarter
But that's
the
just
latter...
according to Stubby.
Stobe. McCarter deems the latter option as the more likely. On verse 15, his hand will be against you as it was against your ancestors. The Hebrew Bible reads, and the hand of the Lord will be at you and your fathers. This reading, found also in the Vulgate, seems odd, since the fathers are presumably dead. The Targum and Peshitta read, as it was on your fathers, a reading preferred by most traditional commentators. Septuagint reads, against you and against your king. Likewise, Kimchi writes, your kings, since the Lord to the people is like the father to the son. The Lucianic recension reads, against you and your king to destroy you. This reading is favored by McCarter and Klein, with the latter writing that the MT may be a corruption of the long reading found in the Lucianic recension. Tsumura takes you and your fathers as a henditis for your entire household. Van Staldein Sulman notes that R. Wise proposed that the aleph letter in the word for your fathers, be'avotechem, is an error, and that the original reading was bebatechem, your houses. However, there are no textual witnesses for this reading and is largely rejected.
But how do we know that we can really trust Van Sol Dinosaur Man?
Yeah, Peter. Yeah. Yeah, you
Are you
realize.
telling on me, Tomer?
Yeah, your Dutch sucks.
He's ratting you out to the teacher, and also he is the teacher.
Okay. On verse 17, is it not wheat harvest now? The wheat harvest begins at early summer, May or June, when rainstorm was relatively unknown in ancient Israel, as we see in Midrash Shmuel 28:6, followed by traditional and modern commentators. Thus, a thunderstorm during the wheat harvest was seen as a supernatural event. McCarter writes that the point of the incident is, quote, a prophet is the proper and divinely sanctioned channel between man and God, and in this respect the request for a king is a great evil. Thus it is that when the storm begins, the people become afraid of Yahweh and Samuel, end quote. Tsumura notes Tremper Longman's counterview that the thunderstorm is the expression of a covenant curse. Likewise, Rashi comments, the rain is a sign of a curse, end quote. Tsumura, however, writes that Longman's view is rather forced, and that verse 17 explains that the purpose of the rainstorm is so people will know that their evil is great in the Lord's eyes.
I love how they're like, how dare you ask for a king, you dirty bastards, God was your king. And he did such a good job during Judges when he was their king, and every fucking 2 seconds some horrific atrocity happens and someone is like, but in those days Israel had no king and people just did whatever the fuck they wanted to do, and like, I don't know. It was like, so God was your king, and a great job he did too. Yeah.
I have a question, Tomer. How could the people in Israel not know what a rainstorm was? Didn't they pay attention when the global flood happened? Did they miss that?
I think the idea was because it was harvest season, it was considered like a bad omen.
It would be like
to have
if
a rainstorm.
Actually, no, I could have a rainstorm right now. I'm in the middle of a heat wave, but also it would be like a thundery, deserty rainstorm and probably start more fires than it put out. So
let me read a couple of comments because we're behind. Minute Rice 1954 offers $5. Thank you, and says, hiya. I'm so jealous you got to see Seth speak today. I was planning to go out there, but COVID scores
Scarce.
are a bitch. Don't have it, thankfully. Yeah. So a bunch of our, his family and our family, my family also ended up with COVID. And then Card Picker says, okay, cool, but what was the ritual name, etc.? Details are in details. Rich, I must have forgotten what the fuck were we talking about?
Card Picker threw a hissy fit in the chat because you didn't answer his question satisfactory, and called the panel a bunch of drunks. So,
it was I think it was that about the ritual that you did.
Yeah, what was the name of the ritual that our
this was the same person who wasn't clever enough to read a pinned comment from Arn at the top of the chat that people tag me.
Yeah, he was very confused
berating everyone for tagging me.
Don't know how to address that.
You're smarter drunk than he is sober.
He thinks you did some official, like, satanic ritual or whatever that has an official name, and you did it from a book rather than you just made it up on the spot or whatever it was.
Yeah, I submitted an SR-22. That's what it was.
Did you get the memo?
So, happy face is the best way I can read that. Have you guys find Muhammad in there yet? A Quran verse says he is in the Torah, laughing my ass off.
Interesting hypothesis. Let's move on.
I don't know if this is a verse in.
Yeah, I haven't found Muhammad in the Torah. I have found Trump in the Quran.
Do they have an Antichrist prediction too?
Yep. And it's almost as accurate as the one in the Bible. both of which predict Trump. But in the Quran, they actually name him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kudos to the Quran. I never thought I'd say that, but fuck.
Yeah.
And
continue.
finally on verses.
Yeah,
20
hold
to 20
it, Tomer. Will you quit holding up this show?
Sorry, all my fault. On verses 20 to 25, my final comment, 20 to 25. Klein writes that this part of the chapter is, quote, devoted to warning and exhortation. By the time this chapter was redacted, the warnings had resulted in the exile of 597 and 597 and 587. History was explained by and seen as the consequence of the prophetic word of God in history, end quote. McCarter notes several stereotyped Deuteronomistic expressions found in this section, such as turn away from Yahweh, su ma'achal Yehovah, serve Yahweh with all the heart, Eved Yehovah b'chol levav, or Avad Yehovah b'chol levav, and fear Yahweh, Yareh Yehovah.
Yeah, we know this text is divinely inspired because they think the heart is somehow a cognitive organ.
Thinking with the heart. I mean, I feel like some atheists are kind of stupid about, bitching about thinking with your heart, because every nation and every language has had a seat of emotions somewhere in the body, and you refer to thinking with your heart or whatever.
It's based on
it depends on whether you're wearing it or not. It depends on whether you're wearing your heart or not, because I fully understand thinking with your heart on.
Oh, wrong one.
Like we also had, we had like with Pharaoh, like God hardens his heart and everything. Like you'd think if this was, God breathed, they might have figured out that, the brain is actually where this stuff happens. Like,
and how did they not know that? I mean, isn't that like a mystery?
I mean, the ancient Egyptians thought the brain was like a cooling.
So it's the reason that they would have thought that was because when you feel strong emotions, usually your heart rate increases. So like, or not usually, but like something happens with your heart. You feel like butterflies in your stomach, sort of thing. Like physiologically speaking, your heart does affect that, or is affected by it. Either way,
you feel
they saw this
sensations in
correlation.
different parts of your body.
So they were like, "Oh, okay." So thinking goes on in the heart.
Yep.
Yeah,
Lawrence is reaching all the way
logic.
back to puberty, like 2 or 3 years ago for him.
Yeah. All right.
I can finish this up with some ancient Christians. So Jerome writes that a priest must avoid covetousness. Even Samuel teaches when he proves before all the people that he has taken nothing from anyone.
What's the difference between an ancient Christian and a paleo Christian?
The club?
Never heard that.
I don't know. What is the difference between an ancient Christian and a pagan?
I was saying they seem to think that a paleo Christian, as in like a modern Christian who holds, like.
Is there a punchline to this joke?
No, it wasn't a joke. I was trying to ask. Like, I thought I thought paleo Christian was like a term people use, but I think it's actually called something else. Paleo capitalism or something. I don't remember. Paleo nationalism. I don't know. No, I mean like modern day Christians who like want to go back to the times of the Bible.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that a paleo Christian is one who holds a strict keto diet or something.
Paleo Christians want to go back to the good old days when only straight, white, Protestant Christian men, rich men, landowners had rights.
And slaves.
Yeah, I guess paleo Christian is not the right term. But
And I would just like to remind those individuals that women had lovely gardens from which they made tea. I'm thinking of growing some belladonna. It's so beautiful.
And I should note Chrysostom, who writes Samuel's affection for his charges, demonstrated by his ceaseless prayer on their behalf, shows that the one who loves Christ also loves his flock. That's it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's paleo conservatism. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay, yeah,
That's
wow. Okay.
Frank Tovey says one beats his wife and she doesn't like it. The other beats his wife, but she likes it.
Yeah.
Which I think is as good an answer as we're gonna get. Fuck.
Yeah, my wife was actually reading me some kind of like I don't know, some kind of erotica novel that was very much in that vein, where it was a sadist and a masochist. Honestly, this was the novel she was reading me, and the masochist goes, "Whip me, beat me," and the sadist says, "No."
Bastard.
What? Did the novel involve snakes? That's what I'd like.
No, it did not.
Oh, trouser snakes, no doubt.
At least
Yeah,
not
it's a
yet.
type of snake, a one-eyed one maybe.
At least
Yeah.
Nine-tailed.
All right, so are we doing 1 Samuel the 13th, or is it the 14th?
Well, next we're gonna be doing chapter 13, but we're gonna have to do that next time because I gotta go to work.
I should
I gotta
should
go
just
with-
Dare
mention
you have a real job?
Yeah, I got a real job. Got a real
Yeah,
job.
I should just mention that the first, just so you would ponder it for the future, the first verse of this chapter says, Saul was a year old when he reigned, and he ruled Israel for 2 years.
Yeah, there's some
Yeah,
variations on that.
I dug the rabbit hole too much on this, and you will see this when I have my commentary.
And Saul's
Fair
reign
enough.
was slightly inept.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he was a toddler apparently, so.
Who can blame him?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And I am enjoying the series. You know, tomorrow we're going to be doing the last episode on the Book of Mormon. The Book of
Kinda.
Mormon and the Pearl of Great Price is the last anything we do on Mormonism at all is tomorrow.
Honestly,
then
I'm
it'll-
kind of glad.
It does
Bec-
suck
ma-
ass, doesn't it?
No, because of the time. Like, I have to tell you that throughout the semester, I had to like sleep for 4 hours.
You know, it's a
Tomer.
voluntary thing, right, Tomer?
It's not voluntary. It's
It's
my
not.
job.
Aaron, you piece of shit.
No, no. The people on that show forced Tomer to be there every single time to read.
You
Because
know, you
Tomer
just-
has the
okay,
best.
First of all,
Is the best God voice on the planet. Period.
Yeah, he has the most realistic accent for Jesus.
Mhm.
Never thought about that. But yeah.
Oh, Tomer, you've done your people proud. You've absolutely made an ass out of Jesus. I just thought, yeah.
I'm glad it was a Canadian
Yeah.
that said that, because Americans are usually called racists.
I play with a little shit. No, it's
Huh.
good. It's I say with love, you know. And
Well, I'm
you know,
gonna kind of miss that. Only that was a weird kind of experience. It's a dumbass fucking book, both of them. And I'm
What you
kind of
gonna do?
I'm honestly gonna be glad that we're not gonna be doing the Book of Moron anymore. Because
You know what I
Damn.
like? Tobias Singer, the rabbi, says about the Book of Mormon. He says that God allowed the Book of Mormon so that Christians would know how Jews felt when the New Testament was written. Brilliant.
bad fan
Pretty
fiction.
good, obviously.
Bad fan fiction. Absolutely. Just
Okay.
terrible.
I can
What were you
completely
reading
relate.
next? Dianetics?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not.
right.
I'm not planning on replacing the Mormon show with anything, right? I could do Dianetics, but I don't know that Dianetics is Dianetics even a thing we need to address?
I think the Scientology has shrinked to like
Shrinked.
bizarre. Shrinked.
Shrunk.
Yes, I mean,
Shrunk.
I don't
Oh.
fucking care. English sucks.
That is
So,
true. That sucks.
Suck it up, bitch. You gotta learn to speak
I'm going to
properly.
side with Tomer on this. He has a valid point.
Yeah, it doesn't make fucking sense. Yeah.
like, I think like
It
there are
doesn't
like
have to.
at least in England and Wales there are like 1,800 Scientologists or something. Or is it
But
like-
I think the Catholics are taking care of the Scientologists for us. We don't have to worry
Much
about them.
respect to Leah Remini for fighting her way out of the cult in which she was born and bringing some light to their bullshit. And I love her for that. I will always love her for that.
Yeah.
Solidarity, sister.
Mm-hmm.
Someone in the comments said you should do the subgenius cult.
I know Ivan Stang. I've been to his house a couple of times. I bought him a barbecue. I am not gonna blast the Church of the Church of Bob.
Yeah, this guy's being an idiot.
Yeah.
Oh,
And also
God.
but there is something I've never heard of. Do you know what it is? The Rosicrucian order?
Ugh.
I
That
don't know
sounds
what
familiar.
that is. No.
Okay.
I don't know where I heard it.
Satan
Yeah, but
preserve
if you're
us.
interested
Someone...
in looking up the Church of the Subgenius, the Church of Bob, look up their indoctrination video called Arise. Church of the Subgenius Arise. It's fucking hysterical. It was
That's satirical, right?
I had never seen a parody of religion before I saw that, and it was like 1991 or 90 when I saw that. It was the best blast of religion I'd ever seen, and it is as a religion. Fucking
No,
funny
you
shit.
You gotta commit. You gotta commit when you do satire. You have to commit. But Satan preserve us all. Someone suggested in the comments that we read the Left Behind series. I know, Lawrence. You're getting the twitchy eyes. I'm getting the oh dear Christ. Oh.
Okay, I should apologize. Apparently, the guy in the chat is seriously thinks that the subgenius cult, the Church of Subgenius, is a cult and is actually serious. So
no, they are absolutely, they are completely not. Matter of fact, the last time I went to Ivan's house, he was explaining to me how he had somebody there that was going to celebrate X Day, who honestly believed what they were teaching. And so he and a couple of other people of the elders of the church had to pull that guy aside and say, this is a parody. This is all for fun. We're just bullshitting people. And the idea that you even had to explain that is alarming.
Rise of fascism means post-satire society. They can't fight actual satire, so they just make people stupid enough that satire can't land.
Yeah. But seriously, look up Arise from the Church of the Subgenius. Fucking funny shit. I had never seen anybody parody religion like that before. When I saw that, I was rolling on the floor. I absolutely loved it.
When you say that, Arn, obviously everyone's aware that Jesus is alive and well and lives in the city of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and he recently got.
I'm sure you've been over to his house because he just lets you in and offers you tea.
No, but so recently he got suspended on Twitter. His internet provider took down his website, which is really sad because he wrote the Bible 2.0.
What?
I'm sure it's on the Internet Archive.
There was an entire Bible online in which he explained that we are all made of starships, which are all made of starships, which are all made of starships. You get the point.
The Church of the Subgenius teaches that we are descended from Bigfoot.
We are. Anyways.
Well, maybe you are. Looking at that beard.
Yeah, that's it. No, this is man, I cannot grow an actual good beard. This is fucking garbage. So, but either way, I do have to get to work. So,
yeah.
Lawrence,
thank you so much.
Do I have to remind you again that you might?
No, you don't. Make sure you join the Discord. Make sure you subscribe to Milwaukee Atheists. Do all the things, do all the stuff that every YouTuber ever asks you to do. They're always good ideas, 100% of the time. Take it from me.
And believe everything you read.
Absolutely.
And join the chat there. It's very funny to tease Lawrence while he's reading because he can't not watch the chat.
I always have to watch the chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta make sure that there's not some douchebag named Peter in it.
All right, and because some douchebag named Peter doesn't get the clue unless we say this, bye everybody.